Welcome back to the IE427 garage, everybody. Today we have guests in the shop. We have the 25th anniversary car Pauline up on the lift, and we are going to be working on getting it prepped and ready to drop in the Gen 3 Coyote engine. So we're going to be putting some accessories on the front of the engine. We're going to be working on some fat mat on the cockpit walls in order to get them all sealed up. And then hopefully in the next couple of days, we're going to get that beautiful Coyote dropped into this engine bay. So hang with us. All right, everybody, we have Mike over here working on getting the power steering pump all squared away on the front of the Coyote. And I think what he's going to transition to after he's finished with that is getting any of the spacers that we need for the engine mounts and the transmission mount in place. And then over on the other side of the shop, we've got Stan working on getting some fat mat inside the cockpit. So all we're trying to do here is get this all pushed up against the top of the footbox, seal up any gaps, and then we're going to actually come in from the other side, both on the driver's side and the passenger side here, and we're going to get some black silicone sealing in those gaps because it's going to be a lot easier to try to get in there now than once that Coyote is in place. Okay, so over on this side we've got just enough heat and sound mat in so that we can get this gap filled at the top. I just went ahead and threw some masking tape over it just in case, so we wouldn't get any bleed through of the silicone as we put that in. And then back here, Mike is finished getting the power steering pump installed on the front of the motor, so that's all looking good. And he has moved on to headers. We're going to get the headers all kind of pre-assembled, and what we're hoping to do is as we drop the motor in, but before we get it set into the engine mounts, we can actually get the headers in place, because as some of you know, the driver's side is a nightmare to get in when it's in place. Alright, so we are concentrating on getting all of the gaps sealed up in the firewall and the foot boxes before we get the engine mounted in here, hopefully tomorrow. And so we've sealed off the gaps up at the top here, sealed off the gaps over here, sealed off the gaps over here. And while I was down here, I went ahead, I found a paint color, a bronze color that's a shade or two off from the powder coat for the 25th anniversary car. But this is far enough down in the car, I don't think it's going to be an issue. So we're going to go with this, and we have our spot for our engine and our battery grounds all taken care of. We're using the Breeze upper hinge mount for the radiator, and so we had to cut these pieces right here off of the chassis so that that hinge will fit in there properly. In the back, you saw Stan making sparks. We were cutting away this upper tab for the SN95 and later fuel tank. And so this will make it so that our aluminum goes straight past here. We can carpet right over it. We won't have that tab sticking out of there. So that's going to clean up the inside of the trunk a little bit. And then I was showing you over here where Mike is working on getting the accelerator pedal installed in the car. We're probably going to raise the lift up here so that he has a little bit better access, because he's a big boy and we got him working on the floor. Good morning, everybody. It's the next day, kind of the calm before the storm. The guys are still in the house, getting themselves ready to start the day. I figured I'd come out here to the shop, give you a little update on what's going on the 25th anniversary car, Pauline. So last night, before we gave it for the end of the day, we decided to get some of the supporting parts and material kind of started on the car. And so we went and grabbed the upper radiator support that we got from Mark over at Irs Automotive, and we got that kind of mocked into place. And then so we've got all the holes drilled across the frame here. We've got the end two, they're not actually the end, they're second from the end, holes hogged out to 1/4 inch, and then drilled and tapped for some 1/4-20 bolts that Mark supplies with that that kit. Just going over, you know, some of the other things we did yesterday. We got the fat mat installed on the portions of the footbox where we needed to seal the firewall right here. So the masking tape is just as a backer, just in case any of that black silicone wants to sneak through. That'll come off probably today. We got the driver's side done much the same way. And then on this side, Mike worked on getting the accelerator pedal for the Coyote mocked up and trimmed. And we trimmed it according to how it's laid out in the Factory 5 manual, and it was not nearly enough trimming. As you can see, we ended up trimming basically down to the profile of the bracket that they supply, the adapter bracket that goes up on the back of the footbox in the driver's side. So we've got that to a point where it fits. We did modify the bracket as well, so there's a little bit of flexibility in that bracket. So that's done. We've got the headers all prepped. I think we're going to try to slide the driver's side header in as we're lowering the engine into place so we can get access to the two backmost bolts, but we'll see. We trimmed the back of the car here. I think we showed Stan grinding on that, and then we touched that up with some paint. The paint isn't a perfect match, but you know, in the areas that we're having to use it, that back is going to be covered. The engine mount where I did some welding is going to be hidden, and then on that upper radiator support where we actually had to cut off the tabs in order to get that hinge system that Mark provides, it all gets pretty much covered up. So for instance, up here, this hinge mount covers this up, and the only part that's going to be seen is the part from the back, and it's very limited on what actually is seen. So we're going to move forward. Oh, we did get the brackets installed for some of the Coyote supporting stuff, so like for the ECU over here, and we've got the bracket for the fuse panel for the Coyote control pack in as well. So as soon as the guys are ready, we'll probably go and grab a bite to eat, and then we'll be back here and hopefully lowering that thing in sometime early this afternoon. So I'll catch up with you then. All right, we have the back of the car up on the 4-post lift with the wheel stops so it won't roll forward. We jacked the front of the car up, and we have them sitting on the 4-wheel dollies. And then what we're doing right now is we've got the engine on the engine hoist, and we're taking the Factory 5 supplied engine stand free from the engine, and hopefully in the next half hour or so we'll be putting this thing in the car. All right, everybody, next day we are working on getting some fluids into our transmission. I think we're going to put some in the rear diff, and we're probably going to put 5 quarts in the engine and then that's a just in case. And I'll explain that to you guys later. But I think we're going to put 5 quarts in the engine at this point now as well. And then we'll do a kind of a retrospective when we get to our final processes later today. All right, everybody. Later in the afternoon, evening, the guys are on their way back home. I dropped them off at the airport just hour and a half ago. And so I wanted to kind of walk around the car and recap everything we got done over the last 3 days. The guys were here for 3 full days, so I picked them up on a Friday and I just dropped them off at the airport. So they were here 3 full days, and we worked them hard. I didn't set lofty goals for the time that they were here. Our main priority was just to get the engine in place. But you know, as things go, sometimes you get little setbacks on some things, and some things you can get done in a hurry, and we had that. We got the engine in, and then ran into an issue with the headers. I've already been in contact with both Dave Smith and Dan over at Factory 5, and they do have a new set of Coyote headers they're going to be shipping us. The flanges, the holes in the flanges for the mounting bolts simply wouldn't line up. If we started from the back, putting the bolts in and moved forward as we got farther and farther forward, the bolts wouldn't fit into the head of the engine. And if we tried it the other way, we got the same results. And we did try hogging out the holes a little bit larger, but it didn't seem like we were going to get there. The amount of ground that we needed to make up for the difference in the offset of the bolts was more than we were going to get with just simply drilling it out to the next size or two. So rather than just destroying the headers, we put a call into Factory 5 this morning, and we have new headers hopefully on the way this week. So that was a setback, but all in all, we had great victories over these last couple days. We got the accelerator pedal mounted in the car, and although we did have some difficulties with this, because it's not as easy always as it appears in the assembly manual, we do have it in place. We have minimal clearance on the side of the accelerator pedal, but I think we have a fix for that. We put a call into our buddy Mike Forte this afternoon. I think he's going to work with us on a fix for that, for a new pedal pad that we're going to put in place and free up a little room. So that's all done. And then what we did on the back is the Irs Rear End has been in, and we had a couple of straggling things that we needed to complete on that. Needed the vent put in, so we did that, and the vent tube. So we've got that in, and we've got it strapped up to the chassis, up high on the chassis, so the rear diff can breathe. We mounted the brackets for the ECU and the Coyote control pack fuse box, but this morning we actually got the ECU in place. So the ECU is mounted here. We temporarily connected the wire harness from the engine. We were just trying to see the layout, and we are going to have to do some creative wire routing for this. And then we just kind of laid the other harness across the top of the engine to see what all we have to contend with. So that is done. As I showed earlier in the video, we put some heat and sound mat on the cockpit walls because we wanted to seal up these gaps at the top where the panel doesn't quite reach or touch the top, the bottom of the 2x2 dash support. So we got that done. We also sealed up with black silicone some of the other areas in that area on the firewall that we knew we wouldn't be able to get to later. So that's all done. And then we proceeded to go ahead and start working on getting the radiator mounted. So I think I posted some pictures on social media. We got that all in. We've got the Breeze upper mount and the Breeze lower mount on these. We're kind of mulling over our options for cooling tubes or, you know, radiator hoses at this point to see what we're going to do. I think we're going to try to make it, you know, look as close to OEM as we can, which is what we've done in the past, but we'll see how it works out. We may end up using some stainless steel tubing in some areas in order to act as couplings between, you know, a factory hose on each side. We've got the overflow or surge tank that needs to be mounted, and that's going to mount up in here, but we just ran out of time. So when you look back over these 3 days and see what we've done, you know, obviously the biggest thing is the engine and the transmission are in. But all of these other items that we got put in the car really make a huge difference as far as how much farther along we are with the car. And we're by no means done, but it made a really big dent. We had some Delring bushings or washers that I guess had been back ordered earlier in the build, and so we got those installed this morning. Just a bunch of stuff. We put 5 quarts of engine oil in the engine, and I said I was going to come back to that and explain to you why. My feeling on this is I always put engine oil or some engine oil in the engine right after we install the engine in the car. Because we may get to a point during the wiring that there's a misstep. It hasn't happened yet, thank God. But all it takes is, you know, one wire to touch and the starter's engaged. And now the motor's spinning dry. Now the motor was assembled with assembly lube when Ford put it together. So, you know, it should be protected from a dry start, you know, for the initial startup. But to me, it's just better to put 5 quarts in the pan. If we decide that we're going to, you know, do something special to pre-lube the engine other than topping off the level of the oil in the engine before we start it, we can drain what's in there and we can use whatever pressurized tank or whatever the coolest device out there is at this moment for Coyote engines, and we can do that then. But this way we have a little bit of a safeguard in case something were to happen. And the way these momentary push button type ignitions work in these modern engines and control packs, all it takes is one push of the button and it'll keep turning until the engine starts. So I just wanted to put the engine oil in there as a safety. So that's in. We still got another jug of oil to top it off. I think this takes maybe 7 or 8 quarts when it's at capacity. So we'll top it off when we get to that point, ready for first start. We did the same thing with the transmission. We've got it elevated, the back of the transmission elevated on some flat washers right now, while I machine a spacer that's going to go underneath the mount to get it at the right height. Because right now, it's just clearing the yoke. The yoke is just clearing the 4-inch cross tube in the back, which is where it needs to be. It's not going to move because this is an IRS car. But when we first put the engine in, that yoke was touching. And so we used some fender washers or some flat washers to space it up, and that lets me know exactly how thick I need to go with my spacer, and we're at a 1/2 inch. So I've got some 1/2 inch aluminum material over here. I'm going to cut it, I'm going to drill it to size, and we're going to put that in as a spacer. So that's in, and then we filled the transmission with Synchromesh, the manual transmission fluid, so MTF. So that's in. I think it took just under 3 quarts. Now, normally they're supposed to take just over 3 quarts. I think there was a little bit of fluid left in that thing from when it was assembled, and therefore it didn't take the full 3 quarts. So we got that done, and then we went ahead, since we had all the fluids out, we filled the rear diff as well, and we went with a full synthetic on that because I think that's one of the new Ford units that require a synthetic. And so we did that. And so it's all full, it's topped off, it's ready to go. We started work this afternoon before I took the boys to the airport on these brake reservoirs from Mk4, and we're trying to figure out a solution to get from the AM3 fittings that Mike provides out of the bottom of these reservoirs into the barbed nipples that are on the Willwood master cylinders. And I think, we talked to Mike this afternoon, I think we've got that figured out. So we'll see what happens. Mike's going to ship us out some parts tomorrow. We're going to try those. And at this point, we're working with Mike to see if we can put together like a package. So as he sells more and more of these, he can sell that more as a kit to get the Willwood pedals and assemblies, the master cylinders, hooked up using his triple reservoir, because it's a beautiful piece. I don't know if I showed it to you just now. I'm going to show it to you right now because it is really nice. And the capacity of the reservoirs is larger than some of the others that we've seen in the past for factory 5 cars. So these are the triples. So 1, 2, 3, these are all separate, but the bracket is custom machine billet, and that's the piece Mike makes. And then he provides it with these, they're AN6, standard AN6 with an O-ring going into the bottom of the reservoir, but they're AN3 out. And so that's where we're having trouble, because we need basically a barbed fitting. So we're working with him. He's going to send us some parts that are AN4 and some 90s and some adapters, and we're going to see what we can do in order to make all that fit. So I think that's going to wrap things up. I've pretty much gone over everything that we did. There were some other little random pieces that we were working on right before the guys had to get ready to leave. Those were all pretty much left undone. So I'll be working on those over the next few weeks and trying to get this car back on schedule, because right now this car is about 3 months behind schedule. So I don't want to rush, I don't want to miss anything, but I do want to increase the pace at which we, are getting stuff done on this car. And I still want to maintain some time to work on Jim's car too. So thank you all for watching. If you like the content, please do the like, the share, the subscribe, all that good stuff. Comment if you like the 25th anniversary car. Let us know if you like Jim's car or Slytherin or Michael's car or the Maverick, the Dually, whatever. Comment, let us know what you want to see. Again, we'll see you all next time. Have a great day.